Now we're gonna do it again. I know we already did it 3 times, but hi YouTube. This was round 4 of the Colorado Open. It was on Saturday morning. My game, Daniel's game I meant Sunday, on Saturday ended very late. We ended up like being done at like 11 or something, and then driving home. We didn't stay at the event. We drove like 50 minutes home, 50. And then we also had to. The round was at 9 a.m. the next day, so I didn't get to sleep by like 1:30 or 2, and then I had to get up at 7. So I mean, 6 hours of sleep is okay. It's not the worst. It's something. But this game is this was Josh's favorite game of my games this weekend, and I think it's mine too. I feel like this game really does show that I'm improving. Like, this is the first time I actually really feel like I'm improving in a sense that's more than like, oh, my rating's going up and I'm getting lucky and I'm winning games. This is like just showing that the way I think about chess has changed. So it is kind of funny though, because I feel like people are gonna think there's only 5 people to play in Colorado, because I've already shown games with James Neal and with Chris Motley, and like I played another person at the Denver Chess Club that I played in the first round of August too. So, and then Daniel played Rhett and Griffin and someone else. But it's, yeah, you can either play Brian Wall, Griffin, Rhett, Chris Motley, Chris Peterson, you know. But okay, same 5 to 10 names. For a while, I thought there was only you and Termin Oil. Well, we played a match, so that makes sense. But okay, this guy, he's a solid A player. He plays some weird openings. I played e4, and I was expecting this. Shit. Eliahin. So, and normally, like in quick chess, I was playing like this move a lot against him, and I was not getting great positions. I also don't get very good positions in blitz, I feel like, in this opening. I feel like I mean, maybe if I looked at some theory, it would be better, but I decided to play knight f3, which I have never done before, after d6. And I looked at one line. This is how I prepare. I looked at one line. The line I looked at was takes, g6, which he did play, bishop c4, and then here you play bishop e6, castles, bishop g7, rook e1, castle, knight d2, and then after knight d7 you play knight back to f3, and if you play knight f6 there's this sack. So that was the only idea I knew, I was aware of. So there's some context. But then we got to this position, and he played bishop g7. Now bishop g7 looks like a blunder, right? So I sat there and I thought for 20 minutes, and I was like, why can I not take on f7? Why can't I take on f7? And I just could not understand why. So why? Why can't I? Or can I? What do we think? Did you learn this in the bathroom too? Yeah, actually. Because you lose a piece. No, well, the point is that king takes, I have queen f3, and this is attacked twice. This is the point. But I'd like you to look at it from the, position I had to look at it from. King e6. Wait, I hear animal noises. Oh no, it's just wind. So, okay, I'll just tell you, taking on f7 is a good move. That's the best move. But I was thinking, I thought for 20 minutes here, So takes, king takes, and I was trying to find the point, because I know that there are a ton of traps in this opening, and that's why he plays it. And Daniel told me he knows this really well. So that was also adding to it. It was like, why would he just allow knight takes f7? And I was just confused, and I'm like, well, I can't not play it until I find why. So what I saw was knight takes f7, king takes f7, queen f3, king e8, and if I play bishop takes d5, he has rook f8, and if I play queen e4, I am losing because of bishop f5. So I was like, oh, okay, that's probably why. And then I just castled. But this is a good move, because... And then after I castled, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I have queen b3 here. I have queen b3, which I didn't realize when I was calculating this. It took me a long time even to find the idea of king e8, rook f8, and bishop f5. And I was like, oh, as long as I find some reason why he would do this, then I can just castle and feel like I didn't bitch out. But here it's still kind of interesting, because he plays c6, and I play bishop f3. I mean, of course white is doing very well here. Maybe even winning, just because his king is so weak, but I don't know, this is kind of a goddamn mess. Playing for opening tricks in classical is the Giga Chad strategy. Well, yeah, because Will Wolf was playing in the open section. I made Brian Wall laugh really hard. I was like, hey Brian, I'm gonna go do some Elephant Gambit prep for Wilf. He thought that was awesome. Just because it's just Elephant Gambit prep. What is that? What does that even mean? But he said... I told Will Wolf about that, and he was like, well, I was just going to spam the Colorado Gambit. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I should have prepped for that too. But, okay, there is this. King e6, King e6 I didn't look at, but I can't see why that would be a good move. I have queen e4. And if you go here, well, okay, that just hangs this. I'm stupid. Yeah, I just have queen e4. That move loses. So, but that is why I decided that I could castle without a guilty conscience. But so I even though knight takes f7 is technically correct, I am glad that I castled, because I feel like I can learn a lot more from the way the game went than just winning out of the opening. Maybe that's a bad take, but I do feel like it was a much more interesting game the way it happened. Okay. So then he played c6 and he stopped that from happening. And I asked him about it after, but yeah, part of my reasoning was that Daniel told me he was really well prepared in this opening, and apparently he's not. And I asked him about it. He was like, "Oh no, I'm just stupid. I just forgot to play c6." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Nice." All right, okay, so he plays c6, and I play a4, which I was really, really unsure about. I spent a lot of time in this game. I feel like a4 is maybe a mistake, or at least inaccurate, because of what happened. In the moment, I didn't remember ever seeing a4 being played in this opening, but I also thought it just made sense. It just looked like a move that made sense. Because you're making squares for your bishop, and you could play a5 at some point, and you're stopping b5 if that's ever a good thing. So I played a4, but I'll show why I feel like it was a mistake. So he castles, I play rook e1, and he plays knight d7. So in this position, I was sitting here and I felt like I had fucked up, because retreating the knight here isn't good, because there is no sack on e6. And my knight is not on d2 to reinforce the other knight. So I feel like a4 was a waste of a move. So I'm sitting here and I just don't know where I went wrong, but I feel like retreating the knight is a bad thing, and I'm just worse. I think this game I made a lot of just really good practical decisions to win. Because, yeah, I wasn't making the best moves because they looked equal. and you have to win games against slower-rated players. So sometimes you have to play a move that you know is not as good, but it gives you chances. So that's what this game was. So I decided to take on d7. And the reason I thought about taking on d7 is because for the rest of this game, the only thing I'm doing is playing against his light-scored bishop. Because that's the only thing, that's his only problem, is his light-scored bishop and how to develop it. So I took on d7 because I mean, he kind of has to take with the bishop, I felt. Which is, like, not a good square for his bishop. But, because I thought if queen takes d7, so I play a5, which I think is a good move. And now his queen is in the way of his bishop, and I have a very strong pawn on a5. So I thought I was doing well here. But then he went queen g4. So he wants to trade the queens with me. I wasn't trying to metagame exactly, but I was aware that I think my opponent was strongest in the endgame. I do think that is what he's best at. If I trade queens here, I am just going into an endgame where I am worse. Or a queenless middle game where I am worse. I thought for, I think, 20 minutes, it felt like, at least here. And this is like the best strategical game I've ever played. So, okay, so there's a lot of problems happening right now. Taking here, I think, is just horrible, because he takes here and he develops his bishop with the tempo. And I have two pieces that still need to be developed. I have this problem of d4, defending that. If I play c3, then my dark-squared bishop is really difficult to develop because of this knight. Because, like, b3 is like, weakening this, and then it's just really hard to get my pieces out. That's what I saw when I looked at this. So, I never ever want to take that queen. If I can't avoid trading queens. If he wants to trade queens, we're trading queens. I can't avoid it. It is also annoying allowing him to take here and getting my rook off of this, because there are tricks with taking the knight and taking on e7. Now, the first candidate move I looked at was c3. And c3 might be the best move. It might be technically the best move. But if we look at this position, I just feel like it's very difficult to get my pieces out. Where do I put my bishop? I don't know where I put my bishop. I also just have no counterplay here. I'm not really doing anything. Yeah, I could play for a6. But he plays b6. A6, the a pawn is very strong there. So maybe an endgame would be favorable for me. But I also just didn't know how to develop my pieces here. So I didn't like how this looked either. And I was thinking about best case scenario. I'd like to keep my rook here. I'd like to keep his bishop on c8 and not let it develop. Dennis gets it. Bishop takes d5 is what I played. So bishop takes d5, at first glance, I think most people would laugh at bishop d5. But if we actually look at it, yeah, I'm giving up a bishop. He has the bishop pair. But the knight on d5 was extremely strong, and it was keeping me, like, in a box, and I just think I need to get rid of it if I don't want to be worse. So I take on d5, and now this has a few points. So he takes back, and instead of playing c3, I play knight to c3. This is also what I liked. Now I actually have a plan to develop my pieces. Also, the e-pawn is going to be hard to develop without blocking the bishop in. So, I'm threatening to win this. Yeah, he's on the d-pawn, but I don't think it's a big deal. I feel like having a rook on the 7th is not something he should allow. So he trades queens, and yeah, it is a little annoying that I had to put my rook on d1. Now I don't have this threat. But here, he has to play a move. He has to defend his d-pawn. if he plays e6, I'm very happy. I feel like I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, which is make his bishop bad. Other option would be maybe bishop e6, but bishop e6 I always go knight a4, and now the c5 square is mine. So rook d8 seems like it makes sense. Here, I thought a long time again. Because, again, if I let his bishop come out, and I let him consolidate his position, I'm worse. I'm just worse if I let this happen. So, every move I do, I'm making him respond. My mom likes to talk about the initiative a lot, but I don't think she really understands what it is. She thinks the initiative is like attacking a piece and making him move once. That is not the initiative. The initiative is every single move he has to respond to something you're doing. So here I play rook e1, which also feels like something that might not make sense, because I'm moving this rook that just moved here, like it just happened. I am also allowing this. And I had to think a long time about this, because maybe this is what he should do, but I'm never ever going to be worse now. Never. It's opposite colored bishops. It's probably going to be just a draw. But now his pieces are hard to develop. My rook is very active. My bishop is going to take over these dark squares. I can attack the b pawn like this. I can maybe play a6 at some point. And now he's the one struggling to find a plan. So, and the bishop is tied down because if it moves, he loses a pawn. He plays something like bishop d7. Fine, I play bishop g5. And now if he plays bishop c6, I even have the idea of playing rook c7 and a6 at some point. I'm not saying here, but at some point. Here I was thinking I'd probably go rook e1. But my bishop is much, like 100 times better than his. His bishop is a pawn. My bishop is a monster. My rooks couldn't be better placed. And yeah, I always have a6 as a resource. So this is probably equal. But I think I'm always pushing here. So that is why I allowed bishop takes d4. So he didn't do that. I thought the only other ways to respond to defend this pawn were e6, blocking in the bishop, or this disgusting looking rook d7 move, which is just really, really vile. I feel like it's worse than e6 because it's also blocking the bishop, but it's just all his pieces are in his own way. But then he played king f8, and I was like, oh, that's a good move. I didn't consider king f8. King f8 is a good move, which I didn't consider. So he's defending the pawn that way. He's bringing his king into the center. It's like sort of endgamey. Okay, still, if his bishop gets out, I'm worse. I have to keep developing and improving my position with tempo. So I thought for a while here too. And even the c pawn might be hard to defend at some point if he gets his pieces out. He just has two bishops, and what do I have? Nothing. So I played bishop g5. Now, bishop g5 has a small threat in mind, taking on e7. And again, you still have to defend the e-pawn. Now e6 isn't even an option because it just hangs a rook. Rook d7 is still really disgusting looking because I'm just going to play knight a4. So the only options are like f6. That's the only option. Maybe bishop f6. But, I mean, if he wants to do that, great. So f6 and now at bishop f4. So what that did was I developed with a tempo, because if I play bishop f4 in one move, then he develops. But bishop g5, f6, bishop f4, I developed with a tempo, sort of, because I made him play f6, which is not something he wants to play, because now his dark-squared bishop is getting worse too. So his pieces are getting worse, mine are getting better. I gave up a bishop, but I'm keeping the position as closed as I possibly can, and I'm not letting the bishops become good. So here, he plays bishop f5, And then it looks kind of annoying, right? Because how do I defend this pawn? Like, I have to waste a move moving my rook, and then he gets his rooks out. Like, I don't want to do that. So here, I have a fantastic pawn sack. Knight a4, which I saw before I played bishop g5. So if I don't have this, then maybe bishop g5 is not very good. But I do. And the point is that if he takes on c2, I play knight c5. And this square is really disgusting. I'm winning the b pawn at least. He has to go back to f5. And now, I mean, I feel like white is just better. Practically, at least. So I think taking on c2 is a mistake. So he didn't do that. But now he has a big problem. The c5 square, that's a huge problem. And now the e6 square is also a problem. So all I'm doing is I'm just making him create weaknesses for himself, and I'm not letting him do anything he wants to do. And while I'm making weaknesses, I'm improving my pieces. So he plays rook e8, which I didn't really look at. He keeps playing moves that are pretty good that I didn't consider. So that's annoying. But rook e8, I think, is preparing e5, I assume. So rook e8, he's trying to open the position. He'd like to open the position because he has two bishops. And I don't want this to happen. First of all, without thinking, c3 is probably what I should do. Because he's just going to take it if I don't. So I play c3, and he plays e5. Here, it looks like he's going to make some progress now, finally, if I take. Taking is probably... I feel like I'm losing if I take. Like, I feel like I'm close to losing, because he has a strong center, and his bishops are finally opening up, and his rooks can come to the center as well. His king is already better placed for an endgame, too. So taking would be a hideous blunder, of course. But I play bishop b3. And now his dark sword bishop is just going to be stupid for a long, long time. It's going to take a long time to fix his bishop. And my knight is fantastic. I will say that my bishop on e3 is not the best piece, but it has a job. It has a job at least. The bishop on g7 doesn't have a job. It's just sitting there. But bishop e3 is holding the position together. So here, I feel like my opponent might be getting frustrated at this point, because he's having to respond every single move to what I'm doing. He has to respond. And he's just not being given a chance to do anything he wants to do. And you can only defend for so many moves in a row and play the right move so many moves in a row before you make a mistake. He played bishop d7, which is fine. It is just hard to find a move. Bishop d7... the bishop's not doing that much on this diagonal, so maybe putting the bishop here could be favorable at some point. But bishop d7, I play knight c5, and I am attacking b7 and d7. So he has to play bishop c6. And then here, I played another just really good move. This is my favorite game I've ever played. Okay, so it looks like my quote-unquote initiative has come to an end. It seems like there's not really anything I can do now. Also, he's threatening to play b6. And if he plays b6, my pawn on a5 is another thing that's just barely, making it so I am in the game. So white to play. I'm not saying that what I did was best, but I do think it was very good. So Chad is saying b4. B4 seems wrong to me. He does have this plan, by the way, a lot of the time, of king f7, bishop f8, and trying to undermine my knight in some way. And I feel like b4 is... If I lose my knight, this bishop is awful. All of my pawns are on dark squares, and this is a backwards pawn, and like he plays king f7, bishop f8, maybe takes here it's at the right moment. And so if I take here, he's b6 and he's winning this pawn. Like I just feel like it's like my pawn structure is just really, really difficult. So I feel like b4 is wrong. I just feel like he plays king f7. And then I don't really have a move. I mean, maybe I can try and play b4 or b5. Fuck. Or maybe I have b5 as a try right now cuz I go here. Oh, but he has a6. I'm stupid. Never mind. But yeah, it's like it's looking quite difficult to stay in the game here. Because b6 is going to be not fun. Therefore, we play a6. A6 I think is a very good move. Because he only has a few options on how to respond to this, and all of them have something that's I'm blanking on the English word, but a setback. So every response has a setback. So obviously I'm threatening to take here, which would be losing for black because I am also winning the a pawn. So he has to do something. Again, he has to do something. If he plays b takes a, my rook is coming in and my knight is coming in, and I feel like I'm going to win. I'm just going to win now. I'm going to easily create a passed pawn out of the b pawn, and my bishop is going to be better than this bishop very soon. So that's a bad move. And then anything else, like I don't even know what else he would do besides b6. So he played b6. And for the first time I'm having to respond. But the thing is, I wanted my knight on d3 anyway. This is where my knight wanted to go anyway. So it's actually not. Now, if you think about it, I'm actually gaining a tempo because he's forcing me to play a move I want to play by playing a move he didn't want to play. Also, in an endgame scenario, having this pawn on a6 might just like turn this into a win in some scenarios for me. If I have my dark square bishop and I can do this. It's also his bishop's running out of squares. So he plays rook a to c8, which is fine. But now, it's actually gonna get really difficult for him to find moves really quickly. So I play knight b4. And I feel like most of the time the knight being on b4 it looks kind of weird. But it's actually like perfectly placed on b4. Because now I might even consider playing rook d1 and taking on e5, and I'm attacking the d pawn. So here I am. I finally made counterplay that is long-term counterplay rather than just trying to, make my pieces better. So sometimes what happens with players rated around like A players and experts. So when you're under like the A player range, you tend to not value bishops enough and not value the bishop pair enough. But once you get to the 1900 to 2000 range, I think sometimes people overvalue bishops. So never in a million years do I want to take this bishop for my knight. Never in a million years do I want to do that unless there's a concrete reason that it works. Like my rook being on d1 takes, and I win a pawn. That's the only reason why I would ever want to do that. But my opponent had some hope of opening the position later on and played this really hideous bishop a8 move. The bishop does not leave from a8 for the rest of the game. So bishop a8, I feel like is really misunderstanding what's going on. He wants me to take that. I will say that if a miracle happens and he's able to open this up, then yeah, he might be winning. But I don't see how that happens. I mean, we were analyzing this game for like half an hour, and we did find some circumstances where this bishop could get out. So I actually don't know the evaluation of this position. But from a practical standpoint and from a psychological standpoint, I think white is better. I think it's equal, but I think I am the only one who's doing anything. And I think I'm the only one who's going to do anything. So now I have rook d1, and I actually have a plan. My plan is to attack the d-pawn, and at the right moment take on e5, and have my rooks be very strong right in the center here. So e4 is maybe what he should do. e4 is kind of a hard move to play, though, because look at your bishop on a8. Look at it. Look how disgusting it is. Look what you did to your bishop. I was thinking an e4 I would play h4 and maybe reroute the bishop to this diagonal somehow, because if he plays king f7, bishop f8, like, this is very annoying. I don't want to do that. So I was thinking I would play bishop f4, knight c2, knight e3, something like this, and just kind of do nothing and wait for my opponent to make another bad move. We can consider after e4 too. F3 after e4 too. Yes, we can. But in this specific position, I don't like it that much. Maybe it's a good move, though. I don't know. Like f3, maybe f5? Or just king f7, maybe? Because if I take this, then his bishop is just that much closer to getting out. Because his pawns are the only things keeping these potentially monster bishops at bay. But f3 could be a thing to do at some point. So h4, I think, is some weird maneuvering plan. Just try and just do nothing for a while. Someday, yeah, someday, yes, exactly. But yeah, I do feel confident that even here I would win. Not caring what the evaluation is, just because I feel like I understand this game better than he did. So, yeah, if he doesn't play e4, then how are you defending this pawn? It's unclear how you're doing that. Yeah, I'll put a rook on d8 or something. I think he put the wrong rook on d8. I was thinking he would play rook c to d8, but I do understand why that's also hard to play psychologically, because you just put your rook on c8. He could have put his rook on d8 in one move. So again, like, this is a very psychological game as well, because I feel like the moves he has to play kind of feel like something he shouldn't be doing. It might be hard to just move a piece twice and accept that you made a mistake, which is what I think he has to do. But he played rook e to d8. But now, I take, and I have bishop g5 with tempo. Very important. And here is, I think, the most critical point in the game. So where would you put your rook? I'll give you a hint. One move loses. Two moves. Or not lose, but I at least get a pretty comfortable advantage. And this just works out tactically as well. So you say rook d7. Now why is that? Obviously putting the rook back on e8 is nonsensical because it hangs a pawn. But what is the big difference between these two moves? So, rook d7 is the best move. Rook d6 is a blunder. And on another factor of this game, rook d6, f4. Well, I've been putting pressure on my opponent every single move for the entire game, and I've been making him respond to everything, every move for the entire game. And when you do that, eventually they're going to get tired, and they're going to not defend accurately, especially under 2000. So finally, he made a mistake and he played rook d6. Finally. And the point is that after rook d6, d7, if I play f4, he has h6. But after rook d6, f4, h6, and I take with a tempo on the rook. And I am winning. And that is the big difference between rook d6 and rook d7. And I saw this in the game, and I was fully expecting rook d7. But he finally didn't see something. He finally got tired, I guess. So rook d6, f4, black is close to losing, it feels like. What do you do here? I don't know what black does here, because this is game over if this happens. If he takes, I have bishop e7 check, which is another problem with rook d6. And it's just really disgusting. If he tries to defend this way, he hangs this pawn. So the only move to defend his pawn is rook e8, but after rook e8, I have a beautiful finish. So I take on f4. I take on e5 with f4, and he takes with the rook. So white to play, it's not just winning outright here, but you have two very tempting moves. And I think they're both winning. I don't even know what's better, actually. I think it's just a matter of taste. And I was having trouble deciding which way to play. So white to play, how would you continue this game? Simple win, take, and rook e1. So that is not a win. You have to be kind of accurate here. There's a lot going on in this position that's not easy to see at first. So rook f1 is what I actually first considered. Rook f1 is a very good move. And the point being that I'm threatening bishop f4, right? So he has to play rook f5. Rook f5 is forced, and you take. And this endgame has got to be winning for white. It just has to be, because this... Okay, you screwed up his pawn structure even more. You need to hurry up and blockade this pawn, though, so this bishop never comes out. Maybe play rook e1 here, threatening this. You're bringing the rook in, and this is just almost impossible to defend for black. So this is definitely, I think, a win. So this was one thing I was considering, but then I saw a little nuance in a different move that I didn't at first see. So the second tempting move that I saw, which is what I played, is rook takes e5, bishop takes. And if you want to be super accurate, it's actually really good to include rook f1 check before playing rook e1. Because now he only has one move that doesn't immediately lose. And you have to see all this back here, by the way. Even back here. So what is the point of playing rook f1? So rook f1, if I just play rook e1, I don't know, he plays bishop f6 or something and plays here, and it's hard to get my rook in and do anything. But rook f1 check. And now the point of this is that, well, if he plays king g7, now I go rook e1, and now his king is here instead of here. And that's an improvement for me, because I moved his king away from the center in an endgame. And in the game I was planning on doing this, if rook takes, he kind of has to play rook takes, because if king takes, I just go here. Bishop c6 in this move is, or not that move. What do I have here? Oh, brutal. I think rook f8 is winning here. King g7, rook b8. And I believe I'm threatening to take on b6 or something. Or maybe... No, that's too fancy. Just take on c6 and play rook b7 is a threat. And if he goes back, then I still do this. So it's really, really difficult to defend. I don't even know how he does it. I think if he takes this way, like... Yeah, he's defending along this rank, so this is probably better. But I still play rook e8, and then I go here, I believe. Or rook e7 taking the pawn. Like, this is just impossible to defend. He has to play this, and rook e7... And how do I win this? Do I play rook e6? Or something like this and do here? It's just if all you have to do is look at how good this knight is compared to this bishop, and I can just maybe even do something simple like this, or this is a win. So king g7 is the only move that doesn't lose immediately. He played king to e8. And what you had to see here is that rook e1, oh, he has rook e6, and I don't have bishop f4 because this is check. But knight d3 is completely winning because the knight is on e1. And there is no check because I take back with the knight and I'm up a piece. And there's no way to defend the bishop. So that is what convinced me to play rook f1. And that is how the game ended. He resigned here. So there you go. That was the most fun I've ever had playing chess. I took a position that normally I would absolutely dread having, and I would just like be like sad and like I think a year ago I would have just lost that just because I would have been demoralized by the fact that I had no play. But this time I just made it. I just made it happen. So this was one of my favorite games I've ever played, actually. And none of it would have happened if I took on f7. So, there you go. That was way too deep for me. Yeah. Yeah, it was like... I don't ever play positionally, but apparently I can do it, and I didn't know that I could. It was more strategical, you know? I don't know if there's even a difference. I don't really even know what the words mean, but this game was not boring. How could you say that was boring? I had so much fun doing that. I was so happy. Try in this position, bishop f4, this is check. And then he just moves the rook, and this is probably a draw, because he has rook d7 here. You need the bishop to help you infiltrate. It's not boring, though. It's chess. Chess isn't boring. If you think chess is boring, then maybe you don't like chess. Oh, I see. So, like, weak players say that it's boring, Dennis. People think endgames are boring. Endgames are not boring. I used to, like, just avoid endgames at all costs, because I just assumed I was bad at them, but it's a self-fulfilling prophecy if I avoid endgames because I'm bad at them, and then I never get an endgame, so I never practice them, and then I get worse at them because I never get them. So I've been trying to get more endgames. I've been trying to trade the queens lately. This was game 90 30-second increment, and I feel like it really shows the difference between this game and my other games. It was a lot more like I was able to just think like as long as I wanted. But yeah, this is an awesome game.